Hey friends, welcome back. This is Ashley with Uncommon Roots Homestead, and today we're over at the land and I am working on hopefully finishing up these beds. So I thought I would bring you along. I'm going to be shoveling some mulch and compost, and I have something very exciting happening in that bed that Isla ran through. So let's do it. All right, so I'm finished with all of the mulch in the beds that were ready. So what we're doing with the beds, I've talked about this before, but we laid a layer of cardboard and then we're doing organic material about like 3 inches on the bottom, and then we're doing compost on top. So that organic material, we're using wood chips in this case because we have access to them, but that will break down and actually compost itself. So it's just a more economical way to fill your beds because compost is expensive. So it helps, and it's gonna layering those, and then every year what we'll do is layer a little bit more mulch while we're growing, and then we'll put compost on top. So we're just kind of creating this like composting environment to grow our fruits and vegetables in. So the next thing I'm gonna do is go grab compost and add that to the 3 beds I finished. And then the last thing I wanna do today is level out the 2 12-foot beds so that they're ready for the cattle panels. We're a little bit low on cardboard, so we have to drive around and find some of that. So I'm not gonna be able to finish this project tonight, but I'm gonna be able to knock 3 more beds out. So let's do it. I just wanted to say, this stuff stinks, but I mean that in the best way possible. And I'm winded. It's hard work. But compost, the quality of your compost matters. I'm saying that because we have ended up in a situation where we got our compost last year, the first time around, from a brand new place we had never gone before. And we made the mistake of not looking at the compost before we purchased it and had it dumped in the back of our truck. When you get compost, if you can, try to look at it first. You can usually get compost in bulk from any kind of landscaping company. So we have a ton of them around here. They sell rock and mulch and things like that. They usually sell topsoil and compost as well. This year we went with mushroom compost. We've done regular compost in the past as well. I like mushroom compost a little bit more. I think everything grows a little bit better. The nutrients I feel like are a little bit better for the types of vegetables that I grow, and kind of mixed in with the mulch, which is how we kind of operate. But last year I didn't look at the compost before we purchased it, and when we got home I noticed it was really it was kind of sandy. It was really dry. If you're going to look at compost and it's dry as a bone, do not buy it. Now the top layer might be dry, but underneath that top layer you should see this rich, dark, moist, not like wet. I mean, it's clearly dry, but it's there's not really any other way to put it other than like quality soil. Like it should hold and retain a little bit of moisture. So if you make a fist, it should kind of retain its shape and then fall apart. That's what you're looking for in good compost. The compost that we got ended up having a ton of coffee grinds in it. It was super acidic. It actually killed all of the transplants that I put into it. And I knew I knew as soon as we put it in the beds that it was wrong and we never should have planted in it. I actually, when we put it in the beds, it was so dusty and dry that I watered it for a couple of hours before we even planted in it. You should not have to really moisten your compost. Now the top layer will get dry. You can kind of see, this is what the top layer looks like, but there's still a ton of organic material in there. Like, it's not just straight dry sandy dirt. That's what we ended up with last year. So note to self, look for good compost. If you're buying in bags, so if you don't need a ton, we actually found that it's really economical to, if you have a couple of raised beds, to actually go and talk to those landscape companies and see if they'll deliver it to you. We had this truckload dumped here. It's the equivalent of like 7 Bobcat fills. So if you need that amount, hold on one second, buddy. If you need that amount, then go ahead and do it that way, kids. But if you only need a small amount, so say you only have like 1 raised bed or maybe you're container gardening, then you can actually go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you can buy compost by the bag. And you're pretty guaranteed to get good quality compost if you go that route. I usually would go with like an organic compost, or even they have raised bed mixes that you can go with. I like to mix compost in, even if I am gardening in a small space in a raised bed. But the more you know. Don't buy bad compost. And you can always test your soil too. They sell these little soil kits at Lowe's or Home Depot, and you can use that to test the acidity and test a bunch of different things in your soil, the calcium, everything. So that's a good one too, the pH of your soil. So a lot of plants will say they thrive in a pH between X and Y. I never know what that is. I don't know if you do. So if you're getting compost for the first time from a new supplier, or you're just not sure if you've bought the right stuff, I recommend those tests. I think it was like $14 for a whole kit. So while Kevin tries to figure out how to dump this last load, which doesn't look like it's gonna go so well, I want to show you what's happening in that bed. Look at all these little babies. So this is the bed that had a little bit of a run through, but so I'm not 100% sure that everything is still where I put it. But I do know that this is spinach. You can tell because spinach comes up kind of grass-like. And then I'm gonna guess that these are probably lettuce that I planted right here, these little guys. So very exciting. They should all be way up above the ground shortly. All right, I am going to head down to the chicken yard to collect some eggs. But I want to show you how beautiful the sunset is. I mean, how gorgeous. It is, without a doubt, my favorite place to be. And soon enough, we'll be here all the time, and I'm pretty excited about that. But today, I was actually at work. I was talking to my team about something. And I was talking about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read it, it's a great book. It's not a business book. It is literally about relationships. And I was telling my team it's one of my favorite books that I would say is a leadership book that I like to reference and pull a lot of the way that I lead in a corporate setting. And the entire concept of how to win friends and influence people is that when you realize that everyone around you is an emotional being, you start to understand that you have to earn the right to influence people. And the more that I thought about that, I was thinking about this platform and some of the other platforms that we use. And, people use the word influencer a lot, right? That's pretty common. We all know what an influencer is. We all have influencers that we follow. We've all been influenced on social media, I'm sure. And it kind of hit me today what comes with influence and what is influence and what is an influencer and how do we win friends and influence people from afar through different platforms in business and life. What is our ultimate purpose when it comes to influence? And the more I thought about that, the more I thought about this platform and the more I thought about the way that we, our hope through all of this is that we're able to influence people to embrace this lifestyle that we feel so passionately about and to embrace even little pieces of sustainability and making, this place a better place and finding fulfillment in taking part in creation and finding value and reward in taking ownership of the things that sustain you. Food sustainability is huge, right? And so our goal is to influence people to make small decisions that lead them to a better quality of life, because I think that everybody deserves that. Everyone deserves to know what it's like to eat good quality food and know what it's like to put your hands in the soil and understand where that food comes from. And I think that we live in such a drive-through culture that, we just want things immediately. We want instant gratification. We want projects to be done in a day. We want to be able to order something online, have it arrive, have it assembled. And we want that all to be a seamless, easy thing to do. And that's just not reality. And as I think about influence and think about influencing people, I hope that we use this opportunity to influence people correctly and to influence them in a way that allows them to see what's real behind all of this, right? Like earning the opportunity of influence is really important. And it's my goal to use that well, if you'll let us. And I hope that makes you think about what influence do you have in your life. We all have influence, whether we recognize it or not, whether you're talking to people over a platform like YouTube, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or in your corporate setting or your family or your church or your friends. Everyone is influencing someone. And so as you go about your day-to-day, think about it. Think about how you've earned the right to influence those around you. And have you earned it? Have you carried it well? Are you taking into account that you're surrounded by emotional beings who have the ability to allow you to influence them or not? All of these things were running through my mind earlier today, and it made me think I actually want to sit down and read that book again. I've read it a couple times, as recent as just a couple years ago. But every time I read it, I think that I glean a little bit more on it's a good time for self-reflection and to think, like, how are you leveraging the platforms that you have in your own life to influence the people around you? And are you taking others into account enough to win friends? And I think there's just so much value in that. The book is really old. It was written in the 1800s, or I guess 1900s, right? Those always confuse me. But it's pretty old. And it's still true. Like those being empathetic, listening, caring, trying to see things from someone else's perspective. My hope is that we never approach a situation from an I'm right, you're wrong perspective. That's not the way that you win friends or influence people. And if you have a cause that you feel so strongly about, telling people that they're wrong is not the way to win them over. And sometimes I think we miss the mark and we feel really passionately about things like we do of sustainability, and we shame people who aren't making the same decisions or who feel differently. And that's not how you win friends or influence people. Whether you're right or wrong is irrelevant. So I want to encourage you today that if you've taken the approach of yelling or loudly protesting something that you disagree with vehemently, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying you don't have the right to do that. You do. But are you winning friends and influencing people? And are you empathizing with the people around you in a way that allows them to see your perspective a little bit clearer? Because I think if we take that approach, we'll see more movement. You know, if we can come to people and say, this quality of life is so much greater, and we can show them how much value we get in taking ownership over our food sustainability and our food process. And we show people how easy it is to garden and how much fulfillment that I get by taking ownership of my place in the garden, then we might win friends and we might influence people to make similar decisions or at least try them out. If we come in guns blazing, we forfeit that opportunity. And you might still win friends and you might still influence people, but I'd like to try that with grace. So, a little different than what we usually talk about here, and maybe some unsolicited advice, but it's on my mind. And my goal is to use this platform to share the things that I feel convicted to share and to encourage you to be the best version of yourself and to make the world the best version of itself through the choices that you make. So yeah. George agrees. Let's go get some eggs. Hi, Fury boy. How you doing? How you doing? George. I don't know where it went. So what's super funny is I just recorded that whole egg collection. Got 13 and had the camera facing the wrong way. But what you missed is that George tried to come at me with fury. So George would, at this point, not be welcome anymore on our farm. That can look a lot of different ways. My parents actually want to take him to their farm, so no love lost. But had they not, we would have made the decision to probably cull him because he's dangerous. So we're gonna head out. Thank you for joining me today, friends.